Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Ask Dr. Meg podcast. This is going to be a lot of fun because today we're talking about dating. Yes, one of those subjects that parents kind of are a little uncomfortable talking about, kind of like driving. You know, you don't want to think about your kid dating, and you certainly don't want to think about them driving, but we need to dive into it because it's so common. Your kids are dealing with it, asking themselves questions. So we need to talk about it as well. Now, should your kids date? And if they do date, how old should they be before they start dating? Should you have rules if your kids date? And if you do have rules, how do you get your kids to buy into them and actually follow those rules? What does dating mean? You know what, to a 12-year-old, dating means something very different than to a 15-year-old who thinks it's something very different than an 18-year-old. And even kids may think that dating is different than you think of dating. And so it's really important for you and your kids to get on the same page when it comes to dating, what it means, what the rules are, and so forth. I strongly encourage you to talk to your kids about dating before they date. Because otherwise, what's going to happen if you have expectations of what's going to happen when they're dating and you didn't talk about it, and then they start to date and you say, whoa, 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 here are the rules. Your kid's going to give you a lot of pushback and think it's not really fair. And I agree a little bit. If you're going to have rules and there are going to be consequences to the rules, you need to tell your kids ahead of time. Also, talking to your kids ahead of time helps them weigh in on the decisions that are going to be made about dating. And if kids feel that they're part of the decision making about something, they're much more likely to follow it. So that's an important thing to do. So, should kids date? Now, I'm not a fan at all of kids dating in high school. Now, it's not that I don't like dating. Dating is fine. If your kids are dating in high school, that's fine. However, from my experience in seeing kids over 30 years who've been dating, when they date in high school, there are a lot of heartache because most kids who date in high school aren't going to end up marrying that person. So they're going to end up breaking up with that person. And a breakup is always hard because usually the first relationship that a boy has with a girl or a girl has with a boy, um, it's stronger. There's a stronger attachment there that sticks with kids for years to come. And that makes it harder for kids to break up during those high school years. Interestingly enough, we might think that girls have a really hard time breaking up, and they do. My experience is that boys have a hard time with a breakup. There are a lot of self-esteem issues. They feel like failures and they don't want to talk to their friends about it. So there's a lot of heartache, mistakes. Kids are going to make a lot of mistakes that are stupid and that they don't need to do. You know, they may start having sex too early, or they may break curfews, or go out and a boyfriend will, show off and drive too fast like a crazy person. So a lot of mistakes. They're unhealthy shift in friendships. And I see this a lot with girls. When girls start dating a guy in high school, usually here's what happens. She starts focusing on him and spending time with him and wanting to be available for him. So what does she do? She pulls away from her girlfriends. And this isn't good for her. She needs to maintain healthy girl friendships because those healthy girl friendships are going to be with her in college, and her boyfriend's relationship with her is not going to be there. So it's really important for kids not to have to spend too much time with their boyfriend and not enough time with their girlfriends. And this is something that kids naturally fall into. And finally, when kids date another person, they really don't get to know that person as well as if the person were a friend. And I encourage friendships in high school because I want girls to learn what boys are all about. What's their character like? How do they behave? What should boys expect from a girl? And the truth of the matter is, when kids are in a friendship, they're much more likely to be themselves. In a dating relationship, they put on airs and they try to be something they're not. They put their best foot forward, which means they often hide who they really are. So those are some really good reasons where I encourage kids in high school to focus on friendship. Now, a lot of parents say, no, they need experience. They need to learn how to date, to navigate these relationships. No, they don't. They're going to learn how to navigate relationships a whole lot better if they're friends with a person during high school. So, what is dating? Now, again, your kid has a different take on what dating is, probably, than you do. So, you need to ask your child before he or she starts dating what he thinks or she thinks are the expectations in dating. So if a girl starts dating a boy, you need to say, well, what should a girl expect? How should a guy act? Where should you go? Should you get in his car? Should you not get in his car? Should you hold hands? Should you not hold hands? Should you have sex? Should you not have sex? Because the dating information that kids get through social media and their friends encourages kids to jump way too fast into a deeper relationship with somebody and they can't handle it. In other words, even 14-year-old kids who start dating somebody feel they need to have sex with that person to hang on to them. So you need to talk to your kids about that beforehand. You need to ask probing questions about dating. If you're dating somebody, how will you communicate? Will you communicate by phone or social media or text, or are you going to just send photos back and forth? Are you going to go out on dates? Are you physically going to go to the movies? Are you going to get in somebody's car? These are really important questions, because if kids don't decide this ahead of time, they will just act on instinct. You don't want your 15-year-old girl or your 16-year-old son to act on instinct when they feel these intense feelings of attraction to somebody. They need to think this out ahead of time, because they need to involve their heads in dating, not just their heart and their feelings. Now, some kids will say, well, dating means I just have a crush on the person. You're going to hear this kids second or third grade who say, I have a boyfriend, or I have a girlfriend, and there she is. And they'll say, well, what it means is that I look over at her and she smiles back at me a certain way, and I know that I'm special to her, so we're dating. But as kids get older and they accept that they're really dating, they're investing in another person. They're investing time, they're investing some feelings into that person. They begin to feel that they're obliged to that person, that they owe that person something. It's not rational, but that's what a lot of kids feel. In order to be a good boyfriend, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need to exclude these other things. Some of it's good, but some of it's bad, because a lot of times a boyfriend and a girlfriend attach to one another too strongly. Others, particularly kids who are older, 15 and 16, feel that if they're dating somebody, they have to have sex, because being sexually active with somebody defines a date. And very often, kids feel that after the second or third date, you got to have sex. Now, you or I would cringe at this thought, I hope. But kids don't. That's what they expect in their culture, because they're not growing up in a culture like you and I did. It's very, very different. And the pressures are tremendous on kids. So dating means a lot of things to a lot of different kids, and they need to be really clear about what dating is and what the expectations they should have for themselves if they're dating, and what expectations they should have for their boyfriend or girlfriend if they're dating. Now, I know I sound like an old fuddy dud. Okay. But I've been through this a lot. Our kids are grown, and dating is one of those things that, kind of makes you very uncomfortable, and you kind of hold your breath a little bit, particularly the first time your daughter gets in a car and drives away with some guy who looks like he's 12, but he's really 17. It just pushes a lot of your buttons. Now, so I said, I don't believe that dating in high school has anything good to offer. A lot of heartache, a lot of mistakes made. And so when should kids date? I think college is fine. College or older. Why? Because the person you choose to date in college, even freshman or sophomore year, is very different from the person you choose to date when you're 16 or 17. Those extra couple of years of maturity allow your son or daughter to think things through in a more sophisticated way. For instance, kids who are 16 or 17 may have real difficulty wrapping their minds around the fact that if they do behavior or they do an act A today, that it could have a consequence B in 3 months. Kids can't get that. But a college student is far more likely to understand, if I do action A today, here's what could happen. Here's what consequence B could be in 3 months, because they have more sophisticated thinking. And that's what they need if they're going to go date. Because the truth of the matter is, kids may say, oh, dating's just, it's no big deal. Or parents may say, oh, all kids date, it's no big deal. But deep down, all kids know that revealing and sharing their heart to another person and being vulnerable, even on a very small scale, is risky. And they know that, but they don't want to necessarily acknowledge it. They want to think that dating is very superficial. It's just kind of fun, something that kids do. But down deep, they know it really isn't. It's a much bigger deal than they want to let on. Now, another reason kids should wait till college, and this is very important because I've interviewed a lot of people about dating, and I interview a gal called Alexi in this episode, which is wonderful. And you'll hear her talk about the things that I'm talking to you about from a first person standpoint, because she's been dating for a long time. She's learned a lot of lessons. But one of the reasons you want to wait for your daughter to date until she's in college is this: most girls in high school do not have much self-confidence. And if a girl doesn't have much self-confidence and she doesn't believe she's worth a whole lot, what's she going to do when she dates? She's going to date down. She's going to date a guy that is not going to treat her very well, that's not going to respect her the way she should be respected, because she doesn't feel she deserves the respect. And this is a big deal in high school. Boys will do the same thing. They feel so insecure about who they are and what they're good at and what they're not good at, that they really can't make good judgments when they're choosing somebody to date. And that's one of the reasons I like to postpone dating. This is really important. This whole self-esteem thing is really important when kids are in junior high. Kids notoriously feel very uncomfortable with themselves in junior high. Boys and girls. Boys feel too short, too tall, too pimply, too clumsy, too stupid. Girls feel too fat, too thin, too gangly, too pimply on their face. They feel ugly. And in junior high, not only do kids feel that way, but they believe that the whole world is looking at them 24/7. So that makes them feel even worse about themselves. So that's what happens in junior high. It starts to go away a bit in high school, but certainly goes away by the time they're in college. And this is all part of their emotional, psychological, and mental development. So it's important to understand what our kids are going through if they're going to make decisions about dating. Now, dating for kids today is not like the dating you did. Dating for you probably meant something like this: I see this guy, he's really cute. We met at school. We met at church, we met at a bar, we met somewhere. We found that we were attracted to one another. We started to spend more time together to get to know each other. And as we got to know each other, then it became romantic and we started dating. That's not how a lot of kids date today. A lot of kids meet one another on social media, and the person they meet on social media isn't usually the person they say they are. And that's why social media is the number one place where girls get sex trafficked. Anybody can woo them. Anybody can make them feel good. A 50-year-old guy could come on and pretend he's a 16-year-old guy who absolutely adores this girl and she's the prettiest thing in the whole wide world. And boys can do the same thing. So dating begins with kids in a very different way than it did for you. Now, there are a lot of pressures for kids to date because kids spend a lot of time on social media, and we're living in a comparison culture. And that means that a girl will constantly compare herself to her friends or somebody she doesn't know on social media. And it's intuitive. Kids do it without even thinking. You do this, I do this too. You spend enough time on social media and you start feeling pretty badly about yourself. Everybody has a happier life and friends are going on nicer trips and their kids are more well behaved. And gee whiz, you better get a new haircut or dye your hair. It just makes you feel bad about yourself. Well, if it makes adults feel bad about themselves, what does it do to a 14, 15-year-old girl or boy? It affects them 2 or 3 times as much as it affects us. So there are a lot of pressures that girls feel to be something that they aren't. And when it comes to dating, they will put that persona forward to a boy and they will come to the relationship sort of pretending to be something other than who they really are. A lot of times, hang on, kids feel pressured to date because of their parents. We parents do a lot of things that we think are cute and we think are fun, but they're really pretty obnoxious and they're not good for our kids. We typically say to a lovely, cute little kindergarten kid that we see in the grocery store, who's a friend of ours, a child, "Oh, you're just so cute. Do you have a boyfriend yet? I'm sure all the boys in your class are just crazy about you." We do the same with second graders or third graders or sixth graders. "Oh, you're such a cute boy. Do you have a girlfriend yet?" Don't do that, because that sets up the expectation in a kid's mind that this is something they're going to have to do sooner rather than later because it's part of their world. So I know it sounds cute and fun. I've done it a lot, to young kids, even to kids in my office, but you have to catch yourself. Don't do it because it puts pressure on kids to begin to date. And we don't want to put that kind of pressure on them. Now, when your kid starts to date, should there be rules or boundaries? Boundaries is a more acceptable term when you're talking to your kids. I need to set up boundaries because I live with boundaries. Rules sounds a little bit, it sounds a little more like punishment, and you don't want kids to feel punished. But there need to be boundaries to keep kids safe from themselves. Now, this is uncomfortable for a lot of parents because they say, "Well, my daughter's 16 or she's 17 and I trust her. She's a really good kid. She gets good grades. She's always polite to me and her siblings. Wonderful. However, she's still a kid." And when a kid comes into a romantic relationship, all bets are off. Sometimes her brain jumps out of her body and her heart is running the show. So you need to set some parameters, some boundaries, some rules so that you keep her safe. And you need to set those rules and talk them through with him or her before they date. The last thing you want to do is not talk to your kids about dating. They go off on a date, they do something stupid, you're mad about it, and you come home and give them a consequence, and they feel, "Wait a minute, you never told me this was going to happen." And they're right. It's really important that you talk with kids ahead of time about rules and what they're going to be. Now, when parents talk about rules to their kids, whether the kids are 2 or 5 or 10 or 16, it isn't fun. Because I personally, as a grandmother now, I'm horrible at setting boundaries for kids because I don't want to fight. I don't want them to feel that I don't trust them. I don't want them to feel that I'm suspicious, that I think they're a bad kid. And so I, like many parents, tend to back away and go, oh, okay, that's okay. I do this in the grocery store all the time. And I know what's going to happen. The grandkids go around and they want this kind of yogurt because it has more sugar and color in it. I go, okay. And I throw it in the cart and they want this and they want that. And I bring them home and their mother very legitimately gets mad at me. And she should, because I know better and the kids know better. But setting rules for kids you love and adore is hard because you don't want conflict and you don't want to let them down. But you have to have rules and boundaries in dating because it's not like buying yogurt. You can buy the wrong yogurt and your kid's going to be okay. But if you don't talk about where your daughter can go and who she can drive with at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, um, she could end up in some serious trouble. So you need to talk about, should she drive with kids? Should she be able to drive with 2 or 3 or 4 kids? Guys, girls, or should she always take her car? These are the things that you got to think about. Personally, I think girls should be in charge. And if she's going to go somewhere, she can pick her boyfriend up because she can leave whenever she wants. Now, this isn't a slight against boys. Boys are wonderful. I have a son who is very responsible. I think he's a grown up now, but he's still alive and he's got a great wife. So I think he did okay. But I feel particularly strongly that girls should be in charge because boys can manipulate girls. They can overpower them, not necessarily physically, but mentally too. And girls need a way to get out. And if they're stuck with a guy who isn't being very nice and rely on him to take them home, that's not a very good scene. So you need to set rules like that. Are you going to get in a car with somebody and where are you going to go? You need to set rules about curfew. Yes, your kids should have curfew. You say, well, they bought the car on their own. I don't care. You own the garage the car is going to get parked in. And as I said to our college kids when they came home from college on weekends, I said, guys, here's the deal. I know you may stay out to 2 or 3 in the morning when you're at college, but now you're home with me. And I need you to know I don't go to bed until you come home and the car's parked in the garage. So I need you to be home by midnight because I need my sleep. And if I don't get my sleep, I'm a pill. And you don't want to be around me the next day. So, setting curfew and limits and what's going to happen if they break the curfew. Um, Talk with your spouse about dating rules with your kids. If you're divorced, you still got to talk about it. And I hope that you have a decent enough relationship where you can come together and say, we need to talk about dating and what rules and boundaries should be for our kids when they date. Because if you are lax and your ex or your spouse is not lax and they're very strict, guess what kids are going to do? They're going to play the one who's very lax and they're going to move down to that level and get away with as much as they can. And both of you are going to be miserable. So, I talk to a lot of girls going off to college. I talk about drinking. I make, I talk about never drink out of anything that you haven't opened, never put a drink down. And I hate to talk about this, but I can't tell you how many parents, wealthy parents, good parents, allow their kids to come over to their home for a party on a Saturday. They grab the kids' keys. If the kids are 15, 16, or 17, they put them in a bowl, they lock the doors, and they let the kids do whatever they want. They believe they're being good parents because they want their kids to experience drinking and being drunk while an adult is around so they learn how to handle it. Never, ever, ever do this. You are teaching your kid it's fine to get drunk. Being drunk with girls and boys is no big deal because they can handle it. No, they can't. And usually parents who have parties like that aren't with the kids. They go up to bed. And kids feel frightened because they are left being in charge. And if you have a 15-year-old girl who's been drinking a lot and she feels she's the one who needs to make decisions for herself and what's happening, she's very, very scared. She needs an adult to make decisions for her. Do not do this. I can tell you the fallout in kids' lives, emotionally and physically and mentally, is enormous when kids go to another parent's house or their parents' home and they party but are safe. There's nothing safe about that. Kids have sex and do all sorts of awful things. So then once you set the rules and you and your kid have talked about this and you're all on the same page, then when your kid starts dating, if it's in college, whatever, or even if they haven't started dating, um, when you want to get them to buy into the rules that you set, here's what's very important to do. Role play a little bit with them. Now, this sounds a little weird, but it's not really role playing. It's basically you listening and having your kids answer questions. You say things like this. Now, when you date, what kind of a guy do you think you'd like to date? What do you think dating is going to feel like? What is it that if they've started dating, what is it about her that makes you feel good? Does she make you a better person or does she make you feel badly about yourself after you're together? Um, and what do you like about that person? What do you not like about that person? And listen. And don't say what she should or shouldn't like. Ask them to give you a list. Then I would ask questions like this happens a lot with girls. When you're with your boyfriend, do you have a sense that he needs you to be there? A lot of girls love being needed, particularly kids who have a tough relationship with parents or they have a low self-esteem. When a guy comes along or boy comes along and they tell this girl they need them, it feels so good. Bad. It's a big red flag. And you need to communicate this to your child without going, that's a big red flag. He should never need you like that. Don't you understand that's a very unhealthy thing to do in a relationship? You listen and you go, what do you think about that? Do you think it's okay for a boyfriend to need you like that? Or should you need him like that? Now, as your child answers those questions, you must discipline yourself to listen. We are not good at this. This is what I used to do with our kids. I would ask them a question, and halfway through their answer, I would look at them and I would formulate my response to their answer to correct their answer, which means two things. One, I never listened to their response because I was thinking about how I was going to respond to that. And two, I it didn't elicit any trust that kids would have in me because they knew that I wasn't listening anyway. So it actually brings a halt to a good conversation very, very quickly. Once you and your teen have set up some boundaries or some rules, then you go ahead and you role play and you say, okay, well, if you don't really want to get serious with this guy, let's talk about some things. You babysit a lot. Um, do you think it would be okay if your boyfriend called you up while you're babysitting and said, can he stop over for a little bit? Oh yeah, that would be fine. He's not going to stay very long. Okay, but how long is very long? Oh, he'll be there half hour or so. Well, okay, in that half hour, do you think you'll be tempted to do things with him that you wouldn't be tempted to do if there are a bunch of people there? Oh, of course not, Mom. I role play like this with kids all the time. And, or you say to your kid, what if you're going to go to a movie with a guy and you don't want to get serious or you're not sure you want to date him? Would you go alone or would you go with friends? Well, I could go alone. I mean, he's a nice guy. Who cares? I mean, I haven't known him but a week, but I know he's a good guy. No, you don't let her go alone to the movies. Friends, 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 friend groups, particularly in high school. Do you see how naive kids are? Kids genuinely believe that they can, a 16-year-old, they can get in a car with a guy or a girl. The driver can drive 90 miles an hour down a country road, hit a tree, get out of the car, and walk home for dinner. They don't believe that bad things can happen. It's the sense of this sense of a personal fable that they have this power that nobody else has to survive. So you have to realize there are limitations in your kids when you're role playing with them. Now, let's go on to something a little dicier. Your daughter is 18 and she comes home, or 17, and she comes home and she talks to you about her boyfriend, and you realize he's a jerk. I mean, a major jerk. He's been in prison. He doesn't have a job, and his friends aren't the best. And as your daughter has been dating him, you've seen some changes in her that are very disturbing to you. She's starting to break a lot of rules. She's not going to class. She's gotten tattoos in places that she never said she'd get before, whatever. But she starts to go down a path she's never been down before. That's the influence of the boyfriend. So, what do you do? First, don't freak out. Do not freak out. Now, you'll want to, because this is your precious, wonderful, perfect girl. And you want her away from this guy. As a matter of fact, you want to go over to his house and threaten him and say, you come around my house again, I need you to know that I have a shotgun in my hall closet. Just saying, you don't want to do that yet. You don't. So what you do is you sit down with your daughter and you stay calm and you say, "So you've been dating Jimmy for a month now. How long has it been? 6 weeks. What do you like about him?" And stay quiet. Don't roll your eyes when she gives you the answer, which might be kind of ridiculous in your eyes. Don't roll your eyes. Sit there and listen and nod your head. Okay. Then you do something you really don't want to do is you ask your daughter to have him over to the house for dinner or after dinner, just to spend time with you guys. And you say, I can't do that because if I do that, then I'm going to validate this relationship in my daughter's eyes. No, you're not. You're not saying it's a good or bad relationship. You're getting to know what's going on. You're entering your daughter's world. And you need to understand what's going on in there. What is she doing with him? What is this guy like? How does he treat her? How does she treat him? And you're collecting knowledge. And you're also, and this is very important, letting your daughter know, I'm on your side. I'm not here to just shut you down, and I'm not here to tell you you don't know what you're doing and you've made terrible decisions. Just go to your room and don't come out until tomorrow. You don't do that. You need to treat her like an adult because she's trying to act like an adult. So after you get to know him and he comes over, whatever, or you go meet with coffee with her and him somewhere, then you start the questions again. So you say, it was really nice meeting Jimmy. How's your relationship going? And again, huge discipline. You swallow hard because you're not going to tell her what you really want to tell her and what you think. And you don't want to say, what is it in you that makes you feel like you need to date such jerk? That's not going to work. She'll pull away from you. So again, you say, well, after you're with him, how does he make you feel? Does he bring out the best in you? Do you bring out the best in him? Pose questions and listen. And here's a trick. You can get her to arrive at the conclusions you want by asking the right questions. For instance, you want her to know that she wants to be with a guy that treats her very, very well. So you say, when you're out together, is he respectful to you? Or if you're eating somewhere, does he offer to pay for you? Or is he always asking you to pay for him? How do you guys manage that? Very nonchalantly, very easily. And then the wheels will start turning in her mind. So now that's what you do when your daughter is dating a jerk. Now, let's give your child the best preparation possible. Here's the down and dirty. What you need to do. One, whenever you talk to your son or daughter about dating, everything must be couched in a tone of trust. Let your child know you're on their side, you're not the enemy. And I hear parents talk to their kids as though the kids are just getting ready to make a mistake. Like, I know you're going to go with the wrong guy. You're going to make a big mistake and it's going to be horrible. And I'm here to try to prevent that from happening. Or you're going to date the wrong guy. You're going to get pregnant. You're going to drop out of school. It's going to be terrible. That's not the way you talk. Even if you don't use those words, sometimes you can use that tone of voice, like, I need to talk to you about this because if I don't, you will screw up. Talk to your teenager as though they're not going to screw up because you know they have what it takes to have a good relationship. You believe in them. Second, this is important too, and I tell kids in college to do this all the time if they're thinking about getting married, which a lot of kids are in college, they're thinking about it. Have your child or your teen make a list of 4 to 5 non-negotiables that they need in a person before they get married to that person. They need to have integrity. They need to not swear. They need to not yell. They need to be kind. They need to be patient. Anything. And I wouldn't say like they need to make a certain amount of money or anything superficial. You're talking about character issues here. 4 or 5 character qualities that your son or daughter wants in a spouse 10 years down the road. Then you say, well, if you want that in a spouse, understanding that you are 17 and you may end up marrying this person, wouldn't it be important that the person you date have these qualities too? And then the teen will say, yeah, I guess so. And then you encourage them. So when you think about dating a person, look for these character qualities before you date. Because if they don't have any and you're just going on your feelings, you're going to get your heart broken because eventually you will break up. Very important. Third, avoid comments about having a cute girlfriend or a cute boyfriend while the kid's in elementary school. We talked about that before. It's innocent. It's fun. We feel we're giving the child a compliment because they're very cute. Stay away from it because you're setting up an expectation in that child's head that dating is important. They're very lovely and it's just around the corner. They shouldn't even be thinking about it. Fourth, stay on top of what's going on in your child's private world. This is the fact that kids now can live in their own private world because of their phones is very frightening for parents. And well, it should be because they can be doing things that you have no knowledge of. And even if you have a really good kid, really good kids get into trouble. As a matter of fact, really good girls with great grades who are responsible and good to their parents get into trouble more easily than girls who don't care about those things because they don't want to say no to anybody. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So you need to know what's going on in your child's private world. That means you need full access to their phone, their laptop, their iPad, everything. Your kid will scream. They'll tell you that you don't trust them. Oh, well, it's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of accountability. And what I say to, I say, I have nothing to hide from my husband, so he can look at anything in my email, my phone, anytime. The same should be true for kids and you. Fifth, periodically ask about their friends. A lot of parents will say, when do I start talking to my kids about sex? Or how do I know if my kids are sexually active? I say, ask them what their friends are doing. Ask them what their friends are talking about. Are their friends talking about dating or kissing or having sex? And if you have a daughter who's 16, 17, 15, whatever, and most of her friends are sexually active, chances are that she is probably sexually active too, because kids want to fit in. So that's really important. 6, be aware of what your child is doing at school, at practice, with time with friends. What are they talking about? What are they doing? Again, that's sort of getting into your child's private world. And and finally, periodically ask, does anybody come up to you and say, I want a date? What do you say? How do you respond? What are your thoughts? How does it make you feel? In other words, keep the conversation going. Conversations about dating and about sex are not one and done. You want them to be one and done, but you can't do it that way. And I will tell you something, as you talk to your kids about dating and you talk to them about sex, the longer and the more you talk about it, the easier it gets. It really does. And you just have to move into that arena without suspicion, with confidence in your kids that they can make great decisions. You get in there early before things begin to happen. And you just let your kids know that no matter what, you can handle it. You're on their side, and they have everything it takes to make a great decision. And your job is to be with them while they make their decision and have their back when they don't. So that's so there we go. That's the skinny on dating. I know this was a long podcast, but it's a really important topic to talk about, because dating can be great for kids who do it really well in college. But as I said at the beginning, it can bring a lot of heartbreak and hurt to a lot of nice kids. And you don't want your kid to be one of them.
Many professionals invest in an executive coach for personal development and a trainer for physical fitness. Now, you can hire me, a best-selling author and expert coach, to help you raise great kids. I have over 35 years practicing pediatrics and an extensive experience decoding what your kids need and think about you. I've helped countless parents just like you. You can talk directly with me through private or group coaching. I'll listen and provide a customized plan to help you be the best dad you can be. Sign up now through the link in the episode notes. Your kids are counting on you. Let's make your family's future brighter together.